Hey, so today, what I thought about doing, since it's something I do maybe once a week, is show you how to cut up a pineapple. So try to eat a lot of fruit, pineapple being one of my favorite fruit, but it's pretty expensive to buy when you buy it pre-cut and everything. But our Whole Foods here in town, a couple times we've had pineapple like two for $4, but these are $3 now. But so I buy a whole pineapple and uh, really cuts down on the price of having fresh fruit because a pound of pineapple at Whole Foods was like $7 for pre-cut, whereas this whole thing is $4. And this, even after I process it, will still be less than $6 or less than $7. So it's worthwhile for my money to buy it whole and then just spend your own like manpower to cut it up rather than spending the extra dollars. It doesn't take that long once you know what you're doing. So if you see this pineapple here, I know it's ready to cut because if you look at the leaves, they're kind of shriveled, dull colored. And then if you look at the flesh, you see some of it's starting to yellow. Some of it's a lot darker green, kind of turning brownish blackish. So it's not like a very vibrant green color like a unripe pineapple would be. Then when you look at the bottom, you can see this part is, if we focus in, there's a little bit of mold growing, which is not bad because it's not inside the fruit, so it's fine. So the way that I like to start with a pineapple is to just chop off the head, not the head I should say, but the top, and then chop off the bottom. Place that to the side. And so you can see there's some browning going on. That's not bad. But when something like this happens, I'll usually just take those pieces and blend it up, and that's what I use in that drink that I made a couple videos back. So what I do from here is slice it into pieces that are about as thick as an individual piece that I would want to eat, I should say. This pineapple, looking at it, maybe I should have cut it a couple of days ago. So I guess that's part of the struggle of buying whole fruit, especially something like a pineapple, is you can't really look at the inside of it. You just kind of have to judge by the outside of when it's ready to cut. So now that I have these rings, I'll say maybe those are like an inch thick. I'm terrible at guessing those type of things though, but probably about an inch thick. So you see that this is supposed to be an inch, but I have really big fingers, so let's just say it's an inch to 3/4 of an inch. So once you do that, it's pretty simple. You just cut the rind off of the outside, and I do a lot of small cuts, that way that I'm not taking away too much of the fruit, and it's mostly things that are going to be considered waste. So all of this rind material. And so if you look around the outside where I cut, you don't see that much rind left. So maybe right here you see some parts of the rind, but I feel like I do a pretty good job at cleaning it up for eating. So the last step is to get at the core. So in order to get at the core is pretty obvious to see. So you see this part right here. It's not coming up the best resolution on here, but you can see this part in the middle, and even if you like feel it, the core is woody feeling, and it's easier to see in person. But cut that. I just cut it on both sides. So then I have these two parts that surround the core. Cut that, and then I'm left with the core that I just placed to the side. And then you can finish prepping your pineapple and cutting it in thicknesses that you want. And the core is, one second. So Katie and I try as much as possible to reduce our food waste. And one way that I'm trying to go about doing that, since I do cut up so much pineapple, is instead of taking this core and throwing it into compost or in the trash, I just cut it up to smaller pieces, and I place it in a container and store it in the refrigerator. And whenever I make a smoothie, for example, I'll just throw that in there. And even though if I were to take a piece of that core and chew on it, it'd be kind of woody, if you have a powerful enough smoothie, it doesn't you don't really get that texture. It just pulverizes it pretty good. So you get the flavor of pineapple without having to use the flesh, as you saw earlier. So it's just something that I like to do in order to reduce how much food material I'm putting into the trash can. So it's pretty straightforward. After this, you kind of repeat the steps for the rest of the pineapple. And having a sharp knife is always helpful in the kitchen. It just makes life a lot easier. You're doing a lot less hacking and more just guiding the blade through things. But obviously when you're working with something like pineapple that's like a wet fruit, when you're cutting it up, you have to be careful about how you're using a sharp object. So I have a lot of experience in the kitchen. I've been using knives in the kitchen as long as I can remember, so I feel pretty comfortable. But if you're doing this for the first time, just be mindful of how you're wielding things and how slick the surface of the chopping board can become over time as you're doing this. But hopefully this inspires more people to buy a whole pineapple, because it's, in my opinion, better. It'll definitely save you money if you're just willing to put in the extra time instead of paying the extra $1 a pound or whatever and having to basically pay for someone else to cut your pineapple for you. And another part about buying whole pineapple is Katie and I also are trying to live a more zero waste lifestyle, meaning, so in addition to food waste, we're also trying to kind of reduce how much plastic and non-recyclable items we're buying. And if you buy pre-cut pineapple, that necessarily means that you're going to be getting it in a plastic container, unless you buy it from like a vendor on the street or something where you can bring your own bag. But if you're going to the grocery store to buy pre-cut pineapple, that means you have to get a plastic container. And even if that container is recyclable, that's still more plastic that you're taking off the shelf, which means that the company has to make more to fill that empty space now. So by cutting up our own pineapple, we're able to kind of do our small part in breaking that cycle. So now we're coming up to the end, and if you can see, a pineapple is not a perfect cylinder. It tapers toward the top and the bottom. So if you look at this part, maybe go on this side, you can see that this top is a bit wider than the bottom. So what I do is I put the part that was on the bottom, I have that facing up. Then I cut on an angle, because if you cut straight down, you're going to be taking out a lot of the flesh. So I cut on an angle going outwards with the smaller part up. And that way I'm kind of just skimming the surface. And this one I didn't do a great job, so I have to go back around and kind of clean it up a little bit. But so yeah, that's how you cut up a whole pineapple. I'm sure there are people who might watch this and tell me I'm doing it wrong or there's a better way to do it, but it's the way that I found works for me. There are so I'm a notorious hater of kitchen gadgets, in particular things that only have one use. So you'll see in the stores things that you can use to slice a boiled egg, which I think is ridiculous. If you have a knife, you can do that without having to buy a single-use kitchen gadget. But you can find online and in stores devices that you can use to core and cut a pineapple, which if you actually look at a YouTube video of those in use, you can see that there's a lot of flesh that's being left behind on the interior of the pineapple that if you were to take the time to learn and kind of get adept at doing it yourself, you can kind of increase the yield instead of all of that going to waste. So, I mean, I guess in my opinion, the greatest tool that you can have in the kitchen is a sharp knife. And obviously, a sharp knife isn't great for everything, but a sharp knife can go a long way with preparing things in the kitchen. So, hopefully, sometime soon, I'll get some rigging so I can actually place my camera somewhere and maybe I'll do a cooking video, because right now the setup is my phone's like being held in place by a jar of maple syrup as it's like balancing on the edge of this cabinet that I have open in front of my face, which is not ideal for cooking, but it works out for what I just did. So hopefully maybe a couple weeks or something I'll have a cooking video, which I'll definitely have to do some video editing for, because there's almost nothing that I cook that's ready in the time span of people that's going to watch this video. So stick around, there's always more to come. Peace, stay safe.